It's going. It's alive. It's alive.
Just
Welcome to your awakening. Please take all of your reality is adjusted.
Can you hear it? No, maybe not. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings, well met, salutations, all that good stuff. Hello, everyone in the chat room. I can now stop that particular screen share. Yes, good evening. Hello. Hello to everyone in the chat room. Welcome back once again. Another edition of Sol Excalibre on this Moon Day evening. Do the mantra branding crap. You know what it is because you tuned in, you clicked on it, you saw the title. So like, click, share, do all that thing. You all know what it's like in this YouTube social media environment now. You're supposed to do all that stuff. Click, 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 click loads, click more, click more. I will say hello to everyone that's in the chat room so far. I will try, I can't promise anything, but I will try and keep more of an eye on the chat room as we go along. If you've got any questions or comments, post them in there or try and keep an eye out. If you can, if you make use of the way the Google chat system works, when you're typing in a comment, if you want to direct the comment or question at someone in particular, you put their name in, type at the at symbol, then their name, and as soon as you start typing it, it'll offer you a context menu with the name listed. Click on that, type your comment, and then it highlights the person's name in the chat. So your comment or question will stand out more. Hopefully I might actually see it. If I'm not too distracted doing my thing, I might see it, so I can reply to it if it seems appropriate. I'm not like most or a lot of other YouTubers. I don't do this for the audience. So I do not adjust what I'm doing just to please you. Yeah, that's what a lot of the social media, but YouTube as well, is just as bad as the rest. A lot of people who create content in this environment, they just want to please the audience because obviously that's good marketing. Happy customers come back and want your product again and again and again. And there is, of course, a sort of inverse of that. There's some people out there who abuse their audience, and their audience have the kind of sadomasochistic personality that they like being shouted at and abused and whatever, so they come back for more. No, I just do my thing. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's unfortunate. But if it's just because I've prodded a button or pressed a trigger in some fashion and you're getting that initial reaction of, oh, he's been a dick, I hate him, he's been a twat. Give it a moment. Maybe it's just because, as I say, I prodded a trigger or said something that's made you feel affronted for some reason. Hopefully we can get past that, because as this situation has been ongoing and growing and it keeps developing, what's one of the key things that we all keep coming back to? And it's part of the conversation again and again and again, and has been for thousands of years. I listened to a little bit of a conversation earlier on a channel called The Conscious Resistance, which is it's a bit of a group thing, but one of the main people who operates that channel is Derek Brose. For years I've followed his work. He does some fantastic stuff. He does some great research. He's got books that are available for free off his website. If you want to read some good information, some good philosophical arguments and reasoning, go and check his stuff out. I was listening to a broadcast I did earlier today with some of the Gamble family, notably I think it was Foster Gamble and was it Kimberly? I think the woman, I can't remember for certain, but anyway, listening to some of that, And this is a furtherance of their Thrive project. If you haven't heard of it, check it out online. There's now 2 film sort of documentary things about it that they've done. Is it 2 or 3? I'm not sure. It's certainly at least 2. Check it out if you're interested. If you haven't looked at that kind of information before, you might find it interesting. For myself, I'm maybe it's just cynicism, but I'm at the stage where it's like you're saying the same stuff we've been saying all along. You're not really presenting anything new. Many people have talked about these same subjects for a long time, and we're back to the same points again and again and again. The way to get through this crisis, whatever the crisis is, whatever direction it's coming from, if it's engineered or natural or whatever, there is a crisis going on. The way we get through this crisis is with calm, methodical, rational processes that involve interacting with each other and helping each other and trying to be balanced within our own lives. So yes, there's bad shit that needs to be dealt with and addressed, but at the same time, you can't let your emotive reactions and knee-jerk need to attack something rule your thinking and your actions, because if you do, problems will just perpetuate and get worse or create new ones. In a very, very cliched fashion, it comes back to the age-old truisms that we are social beings. We work best when we work together, when we work with each other. That doesn't mean we have to agree on everything. It doesn't mean we have to even like each other. It's just the acknowledgement that in existing in this reality, we get far more when we help each other exist in this reality. Yes, you can survive totally on your own if you really, really want to. You can be a hermit and live up in a mountain or on an island totally alone and be completely self-sufficient for yourself. And yeah, you can if you really want to. It's not an easy life. It's a very hard life, but it is plausible. But the way we excel and the way we all have a good quality of life is when we interact in groups and communities and societies as a whole, as an entire species, as an organism. Many hands make light work, another cliche, but it's a truism. So I'm a bit, coming back with this new season. I waited until October. I felt I had to wait for September to end. That's a reference to an old Green Day song for people who maybe remember that kind of stuff from back in the 90s. I felt it was very appropriate to wait for September to end, get past this harvest moon period. There's some interesting connections with recent events to do with that as well. The full moon coincidences and stuff like that. But yeah, I felt it was appropriate to wait and begin again with a new season, season 4. I feel now that I've done more than enough monologuing and talking about different kinds of information, ideas, concepts, evidence, philosophical arguments, foundational processes like the trivium and critical thinking and things like that. I've done lots of that for the past 3 years, more than, if I include everything that I've done that's still on my channel, it's a lot more than that. But in terms of having a kind of focus with this particular show, I've done that kind of thing for a few years now. I feel very much that I've had the opportunity to put my point, my ideas, my arguments across, or just my frustrations, my own personal venting and my own personal process. I've done that lots. And I feel now, I mentioned this in the past few episodes, I feel I've said enough this year that if you're still at the point of struggling to realize what is going on around you and what is being forced upon the society you live in, you share with the rest of us, and I'm not sure really that there's a different way I can say it to you. I feel very much like if you are still stuck at that point, then the only way I can address you is slap you in the face, spin you around a few times, and then point you directly towards some of the evidence that demonstrates this global fraud that has been taking place over the last year. And this INSOC rising, the ascension of a corporatist global system. If you still are struggling to realize that is what is happening, and I'm sorry, I can't say anything else, you're going to have to wait until something occurs to you or one of your nearest and dearest that brings that reality home to your doorstep. Then maybe you'll start to have second thoughts and more questions. So I thought this season now, what I'd rather do is get back to similar to what we'd done years ago, and what was primarily what Peter and myself started out doing, which was more like just a round table conversation. And over the years, the numbers of us involved has varied. Sometimes it's just been Peter and myself. Other times there's been a queue of people waiting to join in the conversation. We've had 9-10 people in a room at once. But the point is that open table where we can just follow the conversation wherever it goes. I personally, I'm not going to try and force anything onto the conversation, but I've got my own personal biases. And at the moment, I feel it is worthwhile to still concentrate on some of the elements, the things that we've often talked about on these shows, the more spiritual, the more philosophical, the more rational and reasoned, without being ignorant of your emotional self, your emotional body, but at the same time trying to process what is going on so that we can actually have constructive thought processes and conversations that maybe can help people help themselves within this situation. I mentioned a few cliched earlier, the kind of, we've all got to work this together. We've all got to, try and be good people and get on with each other and kumbaya and all that good hippie stuff, which is true. We live in a world where cynicism becomes polluted with nihilism. Really, cynicism is not a negative principle. That's not the concept of cynicism as a philosophical principle. Cynicism is about using rationality like a razor to cut away the shit, the bullshit, the self-delusion, the dogma that surrounds an idea or concept or piece of evidence. But it's become, over the centuries of our societies, it's become something that is more about nihilism rather than being a tool of critical application to a thought process or a bit of evidence or project idea, whatever. Now, cynicism is more about, well, what's the point? It's fucking useless. Why even bother? Oh, look, it's the same old shit again. Oh, here we go, same old shit. That's nihilism disguised as cynicism. That's the kind of thing that I feel we need to, steadily move away from. Yes, there's plenty of shit going on in the world, but there's also the opportunity. There's already existing good things going on, and there is an even greater opportunity now to begin other good things. This is why I felt I wanted to mention about listening to the Gamble twins talking and Derek Bro's channel, The Conscious Resistance, because he's done a lot of work on how to help people build communities and the ways you can deal with the kind of problems that the system is throwing at us, that this crisis is presenting us with. That's what I recommend. Go and check out his website and look at some of the stuff he's got available, the information he's got available. But it comes back to that truism that, yes, we need to be working together and approaching this from the point of view of we are dealing with a crisis. This is the equivalent of you just realized that you're actually on board the Titanic. I'm not going to placate some of the audience by ignoring the doom factor that is out there, that is part of this reality. Catastrophism, again, is not a dirty word, like cynicism is not a dirty word. Catastrophism is just a label when you're talking about or looking at concepts that could represent some kind of catastrophe, whether that's global and uniform or localized. You know, it's talking about the risks of a catastrophe occurring and how you deal with it and how you get past it. That's exactly what we're experiencing now. From the Yuri Bezmenov point of view, we are now in the crisis phase. When I was setting up earlier and was doing our thing, getting together on the kind of Skype channels that we use just to link up, and I was looking at the links that people had been put in, and you know, because that's what we do, we share links and say, have you seen this? Have you read this? Have you looked at this book before? And I was scrolling down and scrolling down and scrolling down and scrolling down and scrolling down. I was like, this week there has just been a deluge of things going on. I've used the metaphor before of the ark, you know, Noah and building his ark to sustain above the wave, the tidal wave of chaos that is coming. And that's what Bezmenov describes as the crisis period. And I think that is what we're experiencing now. This week has been another good example of that kind of thing. There has been a deluge of stuff happening. And it's not just here in the UK, it's all around the world. You hear these stories of things are getting worse, things are getting sillier, things are getting ridiculous now. And the lies that the politicians and so-called talking head experts are presenting to the public via the media are just off the wall. To try just to make this point, and I did say I wasn't going to monologue, and I'm already done 15 minutes, so I'm just going to share this to make this point, and then I'm going to shut up and we'll start chatting. And I'm not going to play the whole thing. There's just the one little bit that I think is very, very relevant. Can we see? Yeah, we've got that on the screen share. Okay. I will shut up for a moment. Just listen to what he says in this one little clip.
Whether you've got it or not, unfortunately, it only works in 7% of the cases. So 93% of the time, you could have a real false sense of security, false sense of confidence when you arrive and take a test. And
boom! Remember a few weeks ago, I showed a similar clip of it was Dominic Raab, as Pete reminded me, because I was getting up and thinking it was Hancock. But a few weeks ago, I showed a very similar clip from Dominic Raab on Sky News saying the same thing. So we've got the very politicians that are enacting all these guideline destruction of the country, of the global civilization, stating directly that the tests they are applying are 93% inaccurate. That is the level of absurdity that we've reached. And this is why I say, I think this coming into October, you know, we talked about this in the recent weeks. You know, we knew that coming into the winter period, they were going to really push all this shit. And this is like, we've gone over the hump of the beginning of the roller coaster. We're now in the drop. This is the descent into absurdity that we're now witnessing.
And do you see how they play the word game, though, just quickly? The airport thing, they mention it at airports. Do you think they're using a different test at the airport? They're not. They're using the same one that they're using on everybody else. So it's a kind of distraction. And, you know, you think they've said it. And as you mentioned, Dominic Raab said it as well. It's the same testing.
If they're talking about applying this kind of thing at a port, and
did you say it wasn't, Gary?
Airport,
I was going to say, it's no accident he's standing in front of the very controversial HS2, high-speed 2 thing. So he chooses his location,
A train station is a port, just like an airport is. Yeah, it's a localized port, but it's a port.
No, that was high-speed 2 rail network.
Yeah, that's what I'm on about. At the moment, they're talking about the application of the test in the airport, because that was the initial argument. So the CEO of Heathrow came forward and said, will you allow us to have a test in the airport so that we can go back to business? You know, because if people get tested as they come in and going from the airport, we can fly again and all that kind of shit. And that was when Dominic Raab said no, because they're only 7% accurate.
Yeah,
If
so
you
but it's
can,
the same test. It is the same test they're using on everybody else, though, is it not? It is, isn't it?
As far as I know, yeah,
Yeah,
he's referring
so
to the PCR test.
yeah, the PCR test, which is a big scam. I mean, just look at what's around and look at all the doctors speaking out against it and stuff. Yeah.
if you can screen share for a minute, I've got a great quote that actually speaks right to the issue of cynicism. Yeah. The only practical question is whether or not we shall go on trying. Supposing that I have no guarantee that my efforts will be rewarded, am I for that reason to give up trying? This was one of the things that Gurdjieff most insisted upon in his personal teaching. He reduced the whole teaching to a very simple proposition. A man must have an aim. He may not, cannot see beyond this life. Therefore, his aim, in a concrete sense, cannot go beyond his death. But he can set himself the aim to die honourably, that is to say, not to give up. He reiterated this whenever he spoke about aim, and he spoke about it nearly every day. The whole point is that the aim to keep on trying, to work on oneself, admits of no doubt. All philosophical and even religious questions can remain open for us, but as to whether it is better to go on trying or to give up, there can be no doubt. Therefore, the practical issue for us does not concern what is beyond death. It concerns the approach to the moment of death. How shall I die?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good on that. That is, I've thought about asking a question on each of these shows in season 4, and I was thinking about it from the point of view of like the Socratic method. Rather than me sitting here and monologuing and saying it is this, it is that, it is this, instead ask a question, because really that's what the Socratic method does. Yeah, and I know it might seem a little bit distant from what we're talking about at the moment, but a beginning question to lead you or to point a direction in the kind of direction that he's talking about was, if technology keeps progressing the way it's going, and if you're aware of things like the Project 2045 and Kurzweil's idea of transhumanism and the singularity and all that kind of stuff, if technology keeps going the way it's going, you will soon be presented technologically with the ability and the power of what could only be described as a god. I know religious people claim it's not the true God. Fair enough, that's not what I'm referring to, but people will have seemingly godlike powers via technology that's available to them. If and when that happens, if that is made available to you, what would you do? And I know it's, like I said, it seems a bit of a distant reference in terms of what he's describing in what you just read out. But if you begin with that question and follow it through, you end up at what he's talking about. And it does come back round to what is basically ethics and the moral question of what is it that you're doing with your energy in this existence? Are you on the balanced to the side of entropy? So you see everything as requiring destruction and everything is powered by that steady erosion over time? Or are you more leaning towards the creative energies and seeing that your energy is part of the great creation of everything, which, that's the kind of thing he's talking about.
And also the cynicism you talked of is the people that get depressed because of the outside world. But he's reminding you here that, the outside world is going to shit. Well, that's a chance for you to improve yourself. Yeah. That's the real strain that people often need, to make improvements in yourself. And is it worth it? Well, is it better to strive and keep on trying to make yourself a better person, but there won't be any life after death and it'll be a waste of time? Or are you going to be happier just sitting there cynical and fucking miserable? You might as well try it. Yeah, you might as well. It's the only option.
Yeah, like the eternally stuck in the Colosseum, applauding at your own destruction.
What was that film? That was one of the 3 films of, They Live, and the guy who was in the film book that keeps repeating over and over, and he's sitting in the cinema at the end of it.
In the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah, it was a trilogy of films. I didn't realise that. It's quite good.
It's an Edgar Allan Poe, or based on Edgar Allan Poe, isn't it? Yeah.
Theory of Eternal Recurrence.
Yeah.
which says you will be born back into the same family, living the same life. But even that is not reincarnation. It's the fact that people look for answers in their memories, and they are not, the narrow door is the one that is out there, new life. If your mind is turned around looking backwards, of course it's always going to end up at the point where you was born, and you're going to start believing that point where you was born is where you're headed. You've got to turn around, and breathe in the fresh air and look out at the sky. Yeah,
that also, I think, brings in something I spoke about a couple of years ago. And it's not a new idea on my part. I was just trying to describe it in my way, to try and get the point across to people. But if you're looking back, as you're describing, if you're always looking behind yourself, then you're always going to see your shadow. Everything you're looking at is going to be shadowed because you're looking away from the light of creation. You're looking back to where you came from only. And when you begin to turn around, that's when you begin to lose that shadow, lose that shade. Part of the reason, I know this gets into a little bit of theosophy and even Luciferianism and Blavatsky and all that kind of stuff, but the difficulty for the mind of man, I don't want to apply the label human, but the mind of man, the mind of our being, the difficulty of dealing with the divine is that the reality of the divine is so blinding to us that we cannot look directly at it because it fractures your mind to try and conceive of what the divine truly is. So we end up only ever being able to sort of see it in our peripheral, and our focus is primarily on the shadow. But that shadow enables us to perceive the divine, because the divine creates the shadow so by the very shape of the shadow we can get a concept of what the divine light is, if that makes sense. That's why in theosophy they talk about the kind of need for something like a Luciferian archetype, because it's only the existence of that reversal of that archetype that you get the concept of the divine that is casting shade onto it. But it is a difficult concept and thought pattern to get through, because it can be very ego trapping. I can't think of a better way to describe it. You can trip over your own shadow self and end up believing more in its existence, even though a shadow is nothing without the source of light that creates the shadow. The shadow does not exist without the existence of the light that is casting the shade.
So they have you dealing a lot with this. I was going to say you've got dealing with this reality, this one we're born into. I always think the way that they've had that agenda of mental health over the last few years, and now they've pulled a stunt like this, on people, got people more and more sort of, brought down, and
there is a lot more encouragement at the moment for people to come forward about their mental health problems, to join help groups. There's loads of third-party commercial businesses now that are based exactly on that. As in they provide mental health care either for individuals in the public or for commercial endeavors. Like entire businesses have commercially available third-party companies that do the mental health care for their employees. As an interesting note on that, I just want to pull up this image. I think it was Dino that shared this. I think this is my meme of the week. I was thinking about doing that as kind of like a thing each week. And this is, it's just a basic graphic with text. It's none of this modern kind of like, animated meme or any of that kind of stuff. This is just a simple image with text, but it gets the point across. This is what bothers me about that whole mental health care element that they've been piling on during this crisis. And I'm not trying to say that there is no healthcare requirement for people during this crisis. Of course there is.
Mm.
You know, incidents of mental health problems and suicides have been going up and up and up because of all the stress and pressure that the situation is giving people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it works to the agenda of the system for them to get more and more people convinced that they are in this kind of yellow star bracket. And this is why I've been refusing to walk around with one of the little lapel things that they're trying to get everyone to wear. As in, if you have an exemption, you have to walk around with the little lanyard round your neck with a badge. Because to me, that is what they're doing. They're getting the public prepared for that kind of environment where some people walk around wearing a label that designates them as somehow othered from the rest of society.
Jimi Hendrix comment on the comment stream, Cookie. Jimi Hendrix.
That one. I'm just a self of my former shadow. Yeah, cool. Yeah. That's a very good way of putting it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think is that dealing with things as well. People have had to face up to a lot of things over this crisis, this event, call it whatever you want, but this forcing people to do things. It's certainly changed a lot, and I've always said right from the start, this is this would be a positive thing as we go forward, not a negative thing. Even though things are, for some people might seem bad, but there is that, it's that sort of cleansing or purging time, and it's been either it's just the way it works. They've pulled the global fraud or whatever. They've done it at the right celestial time, whatever you want to go, whatever's going on up in, what's going on with the sun and all that stuff. We're pulling, together, it seems, even though it doesn't seem it, but I know underground and the way we all thinking, that's the mass consciousness going on. It's knowing there's something here that's not right. It's definitely not right, and they can see it.
The hundreds monkeys definitely dancing and singing.
Yeah, and families are waking up. People are waking up their families. All that's going on, and it's like floodgates of like consciousness rising. In that sense, and they've done it, and I thank them for doing it. As I said last week, thank you, Boris and all you bullshitters, because people are waking up. They can see this now.
Cookie, bottom link.
Okay, one sec. I want to give a shout out to Jam Noise. She put up a video recently talking about how we are winning. There's one way to, I'm not saying one way to look at it, as in, you could look at it in a very negative way. Of course you could, but the point being, if you look at that kind of perspective, if you take the time to consider the fact that, all this shit is getting so crazy. Exactly. It's getting so crazy that even the most sleepy people are going, what the hell is this? Yeah. So if anything, like you say, thank you to those idiot politicians and useful idiots and whatever, because all this shit they're throwing at us is fertilizer, as the great cliche goes. All the shit you're giving us is just fertilizer, and you're waking more and more people up. So you're helping us win. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'd rather you did it without causing people, suffering and loss and death, etc. But it is the crisis that it is. I highly debate their claim of a genuine pathogen and all that kind of shit. But the reality is there is a crisis going on. Their excuse of why they're causing it is questionable, but that doesn't deny the reality of what's happening around us.
Exactly. And it's having a negative effect. I mean, I've been looking at an MP, I can't remember his name, speaking out, Strama, I think it was, saying things. There are people who are seeing this and saying things. Yeah, I can't remember his full name. But but it's just
hair.
Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah. Sort of, so there's a few, and people in the media, who've got people listening. There are avenues where people can get to debate the truth as well, and that there's some places that are mainstream. I know I remember we mentioned it, was it the other week, Fox going with the global, the cooling, not the warming. You've got other what you call mainstream type stations that are allowing people to talk, so that's something that they weren't letting people do.
Sky News Australia has been quite upfront.
It's interesting,
well.
it's just interesting letting people say what they think, and that's important, because we're not, like I say, it's giving them an idea as well of this is changing. And interestingly, this is the headline I saw just before we came on tonight. Listen to this one. Pope says coronavirus pandemic has proven that magic theories of market capitalism have failed and world needs a new type of politics. That's the Pope Francis. That twat.
Is he talking about kind of like the politics of magic?
Yeah, I haven't read the article. I just saw the headline. I thought, there you go. It's,
I thought that was quite a good way of describing. I listened to Corbett report earlier talking to
the link in, or I can share it. Or
Peter Quinones, I think his name was Pete Quinones, and he made the point of how we've got to the stage where, in essence, what people are believing in is magic. The magic of the supposed experts like Whitty, who turn around and say, well, the only way we're going to deal with this is with the magic potion, the vaccine, so people are believing in things without any good evidence to back it up, any research presented to them to back it up. So it's the same as believing in magic. I think I might have mentioned it a while ago on the one Wednesday, that kind of Rockefeller medicine system that presents the kind of concept of the magic pill. You can live this certain lifestyle and then we'll just give you this pill to make you feel better. It's magic potion shit. Taz, was this the one you was on about, the Tesco?
Yeah.
Website?
And then there's the other one underneath that. But yeah, there's a new advert that's going out currently about all these lanyards and, going on about bringing the invisible to be visible.
And
if that makes any sense.
It's a good point to mention this now. I nearly forgot about it, but the government, and I know, you shared the links to this, to the government's own website to prove this for people.
Yeah.
The government itself has not made it a requirement. There is no mandatory requirement for you to wear one of these little lanyards, one of these labels when you go into a shop. But at the same time, they've told the shopkeepers, the business owners, that if they don't take people's track and trace details, they will be fined. So even though the government presents it to the public as, oh, this is just a guideline, folks, like the lanyards and the track and trace are not mandatory. We're just suggesting that you do these things. But at the same time, they're telling the industries and the businesses that if you don't do these things, you will be fined.
Yeah.
So then when you go into a shop, the shopkeeper is presented with the dilemma of, I need you as a customer to keep my business going, obviously, but if you don't follow the rules, I get fined. So the shopkeepers, the business owners, are being put on the spot of having to basically refuse you service. And then it's going to become the disability issue of, that's discrimination, and it creates even more friction amongst the public for people not following the rules and wearing their little star, their little label.
Even their own documents point out that it's not law.
Yeah, it's psychological manipulation, social engineering 101.
Yeah.
They're getting one group to hate on another group to force that group to conform to what they're requiring.
Yeah, CNN mouthpieces. This is the same as listening to the BBC Uni. They're all given their scripts to read out, which most of the networks are all owned by the same people anyway. So for them to say it's not a guideline but a law, then you need to be shown the law. Okay, so you're telling me it's the law. So where is this law written? I need the the law number or the act number, or you have House resolutions and I don't know what kind of other documents that you have. Yeah, so you show me that. If you ever get confronted, just say, okay, so you show me where it's written.
I remember the good old days when if you wanted to counter the CNN argument, all you had to do was go to Alex Jones, who also worked for the same company that owned CNN.
Yeah, it's all owned by Disney.
I was just thinking, because you're replying to Uni about his other question, I just think that question he's put in, it's like, mate, in an ideal world that they claim we're supposedly living in, then yes, they should all now be being prosecuted for pushing lies in the media, in the public, but they won't be, because the companies they work for are all part of the same network. They're not lying, they're handing out government propaganda.
Yeah.
Mind you, I have noticed that.
Required of them, yeah.
I've noticed that the number of slander cases is just invisible nowadays. Nobody has been sued for slander. You just take your Twitter down, yeah? I mean, it used to be like, who was that guy? I think he was Proctor, wasn't he? Harvey Proctor from Billericay. Somebody said he'd been interfering with little boys, and he sued them for slander and got loads and loads of money. That kind of thing doesn't happen anymore, yeah? You just complain to Twitter and have them taken down. So...
But wasn't he convicted though? He was convicted though of something, him, that Proctor fella. He did do time or something, I remember. And then there was another case around him, and I think he got off with it. I'm sure that's how it worked with that back in the day, because it was a while back now.
Wasn't it some kind of plea deal? He sort of pleaded guilty to one thing, so the other charges were dropped or something. I don't remember, man. It was a while ago.
Dodgy.
Cliff Richard was the last one, wasn't he? And he actually made money out of the BBC.
That's right, yeah.
See, this to me is part of the absurdity of what's going on. I think Scott Webb pointed this out recently on one of his videos.
Some disabilities are hidden right next to a guy with a black face. Oh no, this is not...
Making the invisible visible.
That's it.
This is like a lot of the oxymorons that they push on people at the moment. This is using the power of the paradox to fuck with people's thinking, basically. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you make the invisible visible, then it's no longer invisible. So if you walk around with this thing on, you don't have a hidden disability, because you're announcing your disability to everyone that can see the little lanyard.
Yeah. You don't have to wear them.
These things make no sense. They're like what's called a tautology. You know, they're like a self-contained, meaningless statement. And like Gary said, you know, some disabilities are hidden. How come they got a black guy in the photo?
What happens if you have two lanyards then? Is that really confusing?
And remember as well, please, people, that none of these things are sanctioned by the government. None of these things are like official ID cards. These are all being supposedly voluntarily presented to you by these, you know, beneficial corporations that just love you so much. They want you to feel safe about walking around announcing your hidden disability to everyone. In an ideal world, you wouldn't need other people to be told to treat you differently because you have some kind of disability. In an ideal world, we would already be aware of those kind of things, and we would be treating each other with compassion anyway. But this creates what's called the other effect. We are being othered, you know, because you are being presented as being different to everybody else. You're being forced into participating in a minority group that will then be used in a political fashion.
Yeah. In that document as well, there's there also details like if you're forced to wear one in work and stuff like that. So you've got staff indoor settings of face coverings at work, and transport workers buying and selling. I swear that some of this has been amended.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise.
Screenshots are better, aren't they? If you think about it. You should take most screenshots of things, because they do go in and mess around with these headlines afterwards. I've noticed that doing this thing for so long. You know, it's they do change the headline and everything sometimes if you bookmark it. Sometimes just a screenshot.
Yeah.
They can't deny it then.
That's the stage we're at with those kind of things at the moment.
Well, and that with the yellow star thing as well, you showed if you're walking around with badges and lanyards and stickers on you, and you know, proving yourself to be vaccine and COVID and whatever up, you know,
Yeah,
It's like a
excellent.
loyalty card to the system, isn't it?
Yeah.
Loyalty card to the system. Yeah.
I
Right.
find it-
Okay. Can I just read this out?
Yeah.
Right. There it says the exemption cards. I'll drop. It's the gov.uk one that and also in there that it will give you a link to the Scotland's government and Wales's government. And I don't think. Oh, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. You know, so that you can have a look up there. Right, but exemptions cards. It says those who have an age, health, or disability reason for not wearing a face covering should not be routinely asked to give any written evidence of this. This includes exemption cards. No person needs to seek advice or request a letter from a medical professional, of which they won't anyway. And apparently doctors already said they're not giving any letters out about their reason for not wearing a face covering. Some people may feel more comfortable showing something that says they do not have to wear a face covering. This could be in the form of an exemption card, badge, or even a homemade sign. This is a personal choice and is not necessary in law. No? So if you say I'm exempt, that's it. Nobody has the right to question you. It even says in their own guidelines.
It's just the media
you don't
pushing.
have to justify why you're exempt.
But it's just the media pushing the propaganda out there. You know, like the Daily Mail showing the one event that happened. You know, in a billion events that happened today. You know, just one they happened to, you know, put there to say someone was fighting over not wearing a face mask. You know, it's just, you know, just giving you the impression and the propaganda in your head, you know, oh, you should, you know, people are getting angry out there, you know, I should conform, you know, and they're complicit in it as well, because they're creating people to be scared and fearful and creating, you know, bad things to happen out there, you know, where people are just going about their normal day, for fuck's sake, you know, and end up in a bloody scrap.
I understand that there'll be some people who have maybe, you know, something going on that means they really struggle to deal with any kind of interaction with others, which means for them this kind of option, you know, is going to help them to be able to go about their day and go and get their shopping and stuff like that, which is fair enough. But that's a small percentage of people that would have that kind of need to, you know, protect themselves in a way from all the shit that's been pushed through the public's mind to make the public fixate on this, yeah. But for the majority of others, I know, you know, it may mean you have to put up with a verbal conflict with somebody at some point, maybe with some idiot security guard or an arsey member of the public, because that's all I've ever had. I've never had any of the security people or the shop owners say a word to me. It's always been a member of the public. Yeah, it's the public that give me shit for not having a mask on or whatever, not the business owners, because the business owners are well aware of all this kind of legislation. They know they'd get done for discrimination if they have a go at me and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and they can be fined. They can be fined. Even the individual staff or the company themselves can actually be fined for harassment, discriminatory, and they're breaking the Disability Act, I think, as well. So,
the public aren't informed in that fashion. If anything, the public are informed minus all that information, so that it creates that level of confusion, and people in the public walk around thinking, why isn't he wearing a mask? That's breaking the law. And they then descend upon you with that idea in their head that you're some kind of criminal. You know, you're a dangerous criminal because you're threatening other people's lives, etc. And I like Lynn's comment, yeah, because these things are in no way official or sanctioned in any way. You could be walking around with hundreds of them around your neck from all different stores.
Yeah.
Are you going to have the Asda one and the Tesco's
There's
one
the Tesco's
and the
one.
one? Are you going to have a different one for each store? Are they going to?
Yeah, there's one for trains as well. Yeah, you could get them for trains and all things. So, you know, the exemptions are out there, people. Just take a look. The government is not going to tell you that there are, you know, they'd rather just scare the crap out of people. you know, to get them to kowtow and to give more of a spin that this virus is going to kill everybody when it really is not. Boris has even admitted out of his own mouth, and Matt Hancock, that the tests are inaccurate. I mean, it is just laughable. It really is.
The numbers are inaccurate. They're test and track and trace. You know, I'm getting the Bojo effect now. I can't say contact tracing app doesn't function properly. Even, you know, as we know, I say we know, you know, we're the special ones. We've got the secret info. But I think most of us are aware that the Trace app is nothing to do with monitoring your health. It's to monitor you, full stop. Monitor you and your activities and everything you do with that device. You know, but even that doesn't function properly. So that the numbers are just going all over the fucking place.
Yeah.
You know, they're just deliberately making it as confusing as possible, so that as we progress into the winter and genuine flu cases begin, they'll all start getting it mixed into that number.
I'm moving to Sweden. Nubian says we do not have a mask mandate, so therefore no exemptions are necessary. And from everything that I've seen over there, it looks very chilled. So yeah, sort out a spare room, Nubian. I'll pop over.
That is all still a positive possibility, even though people like Bojo and Rab and Handycock are still on the media perpetuating the lie. And I'm not saying this to defend them or justify it in any way whatsoever. I'm just trying to look at it from an objective point of view and rationalize what is actually happening, you know, to reason out what's going on. That is basically them doing their job. They are all in on the lie, so they have to keep perpetuating it. And they have to present it to the public in such a way of, oh, we're doing this to help you folks. We're doing this to save your lives. Mm-hmm. Whereas more and more evidence, more and more pushback is building up globally to the point where it could turn on a dime. I know it's a bit of a, you know, highly optimistic possibility, but it's possible that at some point they could turn around and go, oh, you know, there's now so much scientific evidence building up that lockdowns and mask mandates are obviously proven of no effect to what we're trying to achieve. So we're going to stop it all and drop all that, and we're just going to protect the vulnerable and use a model similar to Sweden.
Yeah, and then they could hold out the thing like they did with Harry Clinton. Oh, this Bill Gates has been such a naughty man. We might have to send him to prison, but they won't, like they did with Hillary, yeah? But meanwhile, they've been pushing out the 5G networks the whole time during the lockdown, etc., etc. You know, I've got to go. I'll leave you.
Right.
Cheers, Gary.
See you later, Gary.
Thanks for the links. And it does. I feel, and you know, I'm quite happy to put the kind of caveat on this and say this is my point of view, my opinions, whatever. I do feel that we are basically still suffering the lag effect, where for a lot of the population, because these kind of ideas are somewhat alien to them, they're a bit extreme. You know, we usually get the label thrown at you of, oh, you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. You probably believe the moon is flat or whatever stupidness. Yeah?
Oh, it's made of cheese.
Yeah, it's like extreme to the kind of normal societal thinking that most people go through. But they're starting to catch up because this stuff has become so absurd, and it's gone on and on and on, months after month. And now it is getting to the stage where every time they do their bullshit, like the clip I showed of Bojo, then they're just helping us win, because they are in effect prodding more and more people awake. So this thing could turn at some point and completely flip on its head, possibly. You know, I'm being optimistic, but I think with, you know, the lag effect is starting to catch up with itself now. As we go into winter, there is literally a massive growing number of people that are starting to ask questions and just outright disbelieve the lies they're being presented with on the media. The more and more people, more and more numbers I've seen turning up at gatherings and protests and actions and whatever. It's no longer a fringe concept. It's been brought to people's front doors. And the idea of things like the Great Reset and Agenda 2030, things like that are now starkly in your face. Hopefully, maybe the rule of six thing when it comes to Christmas could be a major turning point for the majority of people.
Yeah. Well, they want to cancel. They want to cancel
got,
Christmas, Cookie. Christmas is cancelled.
But we got 2 months of build-up. They are already,
Yeah,
like I say, I think we're already on that slope of the roller coaster.
Yeah.
So in the last few weeks, the build-up of localized lockdowns in reference to here in the UK, I know in other places around the world they're doing it slightly different, yeah. But we're getting it disguised as localized lockdowns. And as I pointed out weeks ago, at what point do they consider it a complete lockdown? If they do a localized lockdown of 99% of the country, is that not just a fucking national lockdown full stop? But that's been accelerating in the last few weeks. So I can see the next couple of months being a real sort of steady grind into what is basically another national lockdown. And at that point, if they then do we'll let you off for Christmas, that is going to be so absurd that I think it's going to be a turning point for the majority of people. They're going to sit there and realize and think, hang on a minute, this virus respects the baby Jesus' birthday?
Yep.
Why all of a sudden are we safe on Christmas Day, but not for the last couple of months when they've been grinding and grinding and grinding at us?
And then the penny drops with another 10 million, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it takes. Yeah.
Bill Gates' head. Like the head of the Kraken, or the Medusa.
Yeah. Like I say, he's trying to make it as, like we said, like going into this winter bit was going to be tough. And we've seen it already with the county lockdowns and basically locking down the north. Funny that,
I got that. Can't get enough of that loose moose in the hoose. Infecting my voice today. It's just I've been out in the rain again, so I've just, croaking up my voice again. And of course, I've had a smoke since before we started, so that always gets my voice box cracking up as well. But there is, I think October is going to be very telling. It already has been just in the first week, the first 5 days of October.
Yeah. The harvest moon, which you mentioned before as well.
That's a good point. That reminds me, we haven't exactly sort of mentioned the great orange man, the big T, Mr. Trump, Mr. Trumpy Poos, announcing he's positive. And then
but he's out. He's coming out.
I saw today in the headlines that he's probably going to be recovered and back on the job pretty soon. Yeah.
Super Trump.
Celebrities and politicians get the kind of COVID that enables them to basically have a long weekend off and then they're back to work. Everybody else gets the COVID so bad that they have to be put in isolation in a hospital with machines stuffed into them from every direction. Really?
Jesus Christ, isn't it? Falls on a Friday, rises on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah. He the man. He the man.
Like more and more of these prophecies are coming out to what some of these on the Sarah Jessara are pointing towards Trump being. The Jewish, it's not Jesus, is it, for the Jews? I can't remember what it's called. Gary was saying it earlier.
It's not Messiah, is it? But it's similar to that Messiah.
Yeah.
Maitreya.
Yeah,
Maitreya.
That's something else.
But he's supposed to rebuild the temple, sort of life out and prosperities and all that.
don't forget as well his little marionette son-in-law and his peace deal in the Middle East. Who over the last few weeks, they've had different countries signing up to this new peace deal with Israel.
Yeah.
Moshiach.
Oh, is that the one? Sorry.
Tony's just put it in, then.
Yeah.
Moshiach.
Not the other ones.
But I can't wait for the end of this month and November so that this election can be over and done with.
Yeah.
I'm exceedingly skeptical about anything that comes out about that kind of stuff, mate, because Trump, if one thing, he's certainly proved himself very capable. No, I doubt it's him directly. It would have been a team that he's hired, or a company that he's hired to do this job. And please remember, he's linked into people like Peter Thiel and the Palantir Group and stuff like that. We're all monitoring what we're doing right now. Yeah, the Palantir system is hoovering up everything I say, everything you posted in the comment section. All the analytics to do with this YouTube channel have been hoovered up into Palantir. Trump has got access to all that kind of stuff, and he has proven himself very capable of manipulating the various demographics of voters. And I pointed this out last time when he first got elected. He very deliberately recruited the conspiracy crowd via faces like Alex Jones, and he has been playing the kind of alternative media, conspiracy crowd, skeptics, religious people, whatever you want to define them as. There's quite a few different demographics that are mixed in, but he has been playing them like a fiddle. Yep. So when people suggest that he's the Messiah, straight away, mate, I'm instantly, that's just another fucking thread. That's another thread of the kind of shit, like the QAnon shit, of believing the man, he's going to save us, he's the golden child.
I actually think the opposite, Cookie. I think he's the Antichrist.
Well, potentially, yeah.
Palantir has just been floated on the stock market. I'm going to link it up to the Corbett report. They did talk about it a couple of days ago. So
I can't remember how he described it. I can't remember the actual jargon for it, but I think he explained that it's not exactly a public listing. So you as Joe Bloggs can't buy shares in it. Yeah, but it is listed because the in crowd are allowed to buy shares in it, but you're not. Yeah. But it means it does show up on the DAX and whatever on the Wall Street stuff.
Yeah, you should always. I mean, with going back to that Jazara and Nazara stuff you're talking about, Dean, should always. I think I've looked into that and it's come around a few times, and you've seen it, and I've even heard stuff about the Saint Germain stuff, which is the, that guy and stuff like that. Go and look into it if you're not familiar with it. But it's just, should never, they will, especially with Trump and the way he is. I mean, think about he's swam in the swamp all his life, hasn't he? He's been in that swamp. Why would he suddenly?
Exactly.
Yeah. He's just part of that game, and he knows everyone anyway. He knew everybody. He knew Netanyahu. They went to school together and all that stuff. If you remember, and he's grown up in those circles, just like Ghislaine and all the rest of them did. All of them all sort of interlink and interwoven into these elite classes that are around. That are all working together in some way, shape, or form. Maybe there is something happening. Maybe there is a turn to the. I know we're coming into an awakening and a conscious rising. I know that's happening with the people. So look, I'm not writing anything off. But I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket and go, right, okay, do nothing. We got to still keep working what we do and helping, and because they're pulling a number on everybody at the moment. Everyone's struggling with this bullshit, in one shape, way, or form. Where some people are now bankrupt, or they're just whatever. Their whole lives have changed. So we're here to hopefully calm that down and help people just see what's really going on. And if this is really true, then it will happen, won't it? But I'm not going to think, well, just like the 2012 thing, everybody was getting carried away that the mothership was going to arrive and take them all off, and they're going to ascend to this new planet or something. You know, it's like this is where they take you. So you have to be realistic. Realism, be grounded, be balanced, be centered. You know, there is all possibility out there. To be honest with you, and the way that this thing is rising, you know, we've got to be careful we don't get hijacked and we don't get taken down the wrong path. That's where we, you know, are looking at these things, and lots of people are, not just us. You know, we're taking all this on board and we're looking at it and we're going, yeah, okay, whatever. You know, we've seen these things. We've been around a long, long time, and we look and we see, you know, and you know, they've been given all these sort of dates and things and whatever, and this is going to happen, and you know, putting his tweets and putting things together and thinking it's all some kind of code that's going on. So let's just wait and see. I can't see it myself, but you know, let's just wait and see. Let's just wait and see. Yeah, I think they do take you down the avenues of like hope or hopium, as they call it now, isn't it? The new word. You know, and that's, you know, you can't go down that route. You know, you've got to, you know, do your own work on yourself, deal with your own stuff, because it's very important. You know, it's a time of now where people should be looking at themselves and doing meditations and things like that, and sitting down and be quiet and start to reflect on what's really going on, and you know, see, you know, just basically work with themselves more, and don't get carried away and get feared out by any of it, and understand what propaganda is and things like this, and get yourself clued up and savvy with what's been going on for a long, long time, and now your eyes can see it, and it's a big flush of a big massive rush of information coming in, so you need time to, you know, also, you know, take your time, if you know what I mean, because there's a lot going on, and people waking up now, well, you know, there's a lot more out there. I mean, when I suppose spiritually, you know, 2003 for me, but truth in that sense, geopolitical, about 2008 or 9 was where I started seeing things in that sense of like how the corporations, how all this propaganda, social engineering, all of this kind of stuff just absolutely blew my bloody mind at the time. But now, you know, with what you can see actually going on to make it real in front of you, it's happening in front of you. You know, you can't deny it.
I need for a B-52 then with a truth bomb on it for my time. I really do.
But we know what we're dealing with day to day in the reality basis here now, what we're all doing, you know, when we go out, when we switch off the internet and we're dealing with life and reality. You know, I'm not seeing anything really, you know, we're just having to, you know, work, see, you know, like I say, we're going through a harder phase of this now. So, you know, let's just see what happens. Let's just get the other side, and you know, let's just see where we're going.
This is the crucible. This is a crucible that we didn't choose to be in. It's just the way things have developed. But yeah, I left Sonia's comment up there about Hunter Moon, Halloween. You know, because there's been a lot of. It's a shame Gary's had to go now, because I know he likes this subject and he knows a lot about this subject. You know, there's been a lot of the astrological and astronomical connections in this, certainly this year and in recent years. You know, these things have been building up and building up, and I do certainly agree that, you know, there's that hopium element that has been pushed for donkey's years. For as far as I can remember, there's always been groups like that push that kind of hopium bullshit, but often it's a deliberate misdirection from something that is actually true, that has some kernel of truth in reality to it. So things like the sort of Tony mentioned Wilcock in the comments, you know, you get that kind of extreme hopium of like, oh, the aliens are going to arrive in the mothership and they're going to touch us and we're all going to ascend and we're going to become beings of light and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, it's a very clever and subtle bit of psychological trickery where they take elements of truth but misdirect you into how that truth comes about, or how it is enabled, or how you go through that process. Because I feel, and again, I'm happy to say this is my point of view, so, you know, whatever, if you disagree, that's cool. There is the process that we're all going through where you are attempting to better yourself. You know, you're attempting to ascend, to climb the ladder, whatever particular religious belief, or even if you have none, you're still trying to excel at yourself. You're trying to better yourself. Yeah. Those are the kind of connections that are happening now. a lot of this situation, I think I might have mentioned this in the last broadcast or previous, a lot of what's going on at the moment could potentially be described as a method to encourage you to grow. Although I completely disagree with that kind of Justinian point of view of, you have to beat people to make them better themselves. I have to hurt you to get you to actually be a better person. So, no, sorry, there's other ways to do this. You don't need to cause pain and distress and stress and death even to try and help your population develop themselves. But a lot of that misdirection is deliberately meant to take you away from the reality of developing yourself. They would constantly refer to the mothership, but that's an externalized materialist metaphor concept of you actually ascending within your own self and finding your own true power. Because that power doesn't disconnect you from everything else. It actually helps you connect to everything else. The mothership is kind of a distraction. It's like the magician's equipment. It's not necessarily the equipment that makes the trick happen. It's the magician or the illusionist knowing how to manipulate the equipment to make you think something has happened, to manipulate your perception. In the same way, they use that kind of concept of, don't worry, the Messiah, the outside external savior, is going to turn up any moment and whisk you away, and that's how you will ascend. So in other words, you're saying that ascension or development of the self is actually true, but you're just trying to trick me that it comes from outside of myself and not through my own development. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of what's been going on this year, this whole crisis situation, is a crucible for many people. It's a crucible for us as an entire population, as a species. That might not necessarily be a desired thing, and it's certainly not a pleasant thing, because people are dying, people are losing their lives, losing their businesses, etc., etc. But it is certainly a crucible opportunity to develop yourself and change the way you are living. Where it came from, who initiated it, is going to be found out and dealt with in due course. But for now, what you're left with, what you're presented with, is that kind of moral choice. Are you going to grow? Are you going to be a good person? Are you going to develop yourself in ways that enable you to survive a crisis like this? Or are you just going to succumb to that externalization and wait for the saviors in their tanks to roll down your street and kill all the naughty people that won't wear a mask or get a vaccine? That's what you're being presented with, folks. That's the stark choice.
Yeah.
They want you to agree. This is part of the occultic requirement, that they need the victim to consent to their own victimization. They need you to agree to join into their technocratic dystopia prison. Whereas if you disagree, they will other you and they will attempt to push you out, because they're going that way. They built their ship and they want you to get on board. Does that make sense? I know I've sort of diverged a bit away from the point about astrology and astronomy, but it is all linked into this time period and the coalescence, the synchronistic convergence of all these things happening now. The changes in the solar system, the effect of the astrological effects of the planets and the movement of the solar system on us, the way we feel, the way we think, our emotions, the way we interact with each other. This is all the crucible effect, the big grinding stone. Me and Gary was talking about this before we started. That is where that opportunity is. You're being presented with a very clear choice point. For however many years we talked about how this was all about the fifth age, the V symbol, and then talking about bringing in the fifth age, the fifth Reich, all that kind of. Is it, or is it about two choices? Do you choose left or right? Do you choose good or bad? Do you choose Jesus or Satan? Whichever particular religious metaphor or costume you dress it up in, that's the choice. Do you choose selfishness or altruism? Do you choose the individual or the collective? It's a dualistic process, and that can be problematic in that it can trick people into simplistic black and white thinking, but when it comes to the crunch, it is a black and white decision of, do you go along with this or do you not? How you don't and how you do is then further to that. That's the nuance to the result of your choice. But the choice is actually, do you step across the line or do you draw the line and say no further?
Well, it was interesting. The mayor of Middlesbrough spoke out. Did you hear him?
He did a 180,
Turncoat.
He did a U-turn though.
He did.
Yeah, well, he had to, I suppose, because they were probably going to arrest him or something. I don't know. He probably thought he was going to
throw him out of the big boys club.
Yeah, for incitement. Incitement, that sort of thing. They do you for that. He couldn't say,
Is that an actual law in this country, incitement?
I'm sure it did.
Yes.
They'd have got him on it.
Comes under sedition laws, I think.
I thought it'd be like a two-barrel one where it'd be like incitement to be a crime. You know what I mean? It's incitement. You are inciting to do something.
Yeah, they can approach it. They can approach it from two ways. I think it could sort of be called incitement if they do it under
breaking a guideline.
Dangerous
not
rhetoric during a crisis period and things like putting people's lives at risk by what you're saying, that kind of thing. But at the same time, they could also approach it from sedition, as in he's going counter to government orders and he's telling others to do so. That is that's basically the definition of sedition. You're encouraging people to go against their own government.
Yeah. If he's actually won that parish, let's call it a parish, or area where he's actually in control of, surely he should get that say there then, not just the government. Well, that's the whole point of having parishes and councillors for each parish.
Only to a certain degree, mate. They've got limited autonomy within their parish. They can't just do their own thing, even though the concept is sort of there, or the expectation from the public is there that their local councillors can be in charge of their local area. They're not really. They're just bureaucrats.
So really,
they're just administrators of the government dictates.
So the pointless being though, really, because even if he took a consensus of his town, and everybody turned around and said, "No, we don't want to do this," so he should really have that right to say, "Right, my town's done this, and they want this, so we're doing this."
Well, just for people to understand, a mayor in the UK isn't the kind of mayor in the US. A mayor over here is just a guy who basically has no power. He just goes to fancy lunches and wears big, chains and things and looks very, important for a bit. And then they have another mayor. Is that how it works?
Well, maybe a decade ago.
Maybe not the mayor of London, no, but I'm saying like local mayors where they have the mayors in those local parishes that you're talking about and stuff.
They have been celebritizing the mayor of London for more than a decade now, 2 decades really, because it goes back to all the 9/11 and all that kind of stuff, But he's just the one, or say he, it might be a she that gets him, but that position is the one that they constantly put in the media. But the reality is all the big cities have got the same thing now, man. They have a mayor that has a lot more power within that borough than they ever used to in the past. And UK column have been covering this quite well. There has been a steady shift without announcement to the public of control in a local area or borough by the council directly to subordinate groups or committees that don't have to answer to the local
council
voters. Well, not even the council, because the council are automatically basically sanctioning whatever committee it is by creating the committee. They're basically saying like, well, we don't have time to deal with all these things because the crisis, the COVID, so we're going to subcommittee the elements of, like, for example, dealing with how people come and go from the borough. So whether there's any border controls for track and trace and shit like that, that's all going to be put into a subcommittee so they can do it quicker. But that causes, the reality of that causes basically a separation of powers from a council of elected supposed representatives that have been elected by the local people, the local citizenry, to a subcommittee that does not require that voting representation.
Yeah, Lynn said that. Hang on, I'll read out what she's written. They're getting shot of local parishes, councils, etc. All part of the master plan. Yeah. They'll gradually condense the power down to smaller and smaller or regions or districts.
Yeah.
It'll be like the Hunger Games districts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've already got districts in America, so
it's
Well, we are now, aren't we?
The local council has no influence really on what happens. They act as just a bureaucratic committee that enacts the orders that come from Parliament or from the cabinet, really, because it's not even Parliament. Where's those missing 300? Yeah, in that vote over the Coronavirus Act recently. I know other YouTubers have mentioned this. You know, where were the 300 other politicians that were supposed to vote on that?
Yeah.
It is becoming deliberately neo-feudalistic. There'll be local subcommittees. A lot of them will be operated by third-party private companies like Serco, and they will basically just enact the orders that come from the computer models in the cabinet's back office. Yeah. So it really is sort of heading that direction of. I know it's a bit of an extreme leap, but that Hunger Games style environment, where you will have zones, very much like the UN agenda, the different zones. Yeah.
Talking of the UN,
the fractal effect. Just to mention this, sorry, the fractal effect of that federalization, which is basically a modern form of feudalism. There is a singular overarching centralized power base. Then you have some that are a bit more sort of geographical zones. So you could say like Europe, the European superstate. Then there's UK local sort of zone. And then it will go down into borough areas. And then it will go down into local parish areas. And at each level, there is a layer of management, bureaucrats who are basically just rubber stamping paperwork that comes over their desk in a virtual sense, you know, because it'd be all on computers.
I've just reposted the link at the bottom of this StreamYard chat. Okay. If you can, it's the UN one.
Talking about your sky.
This is for March.
Talking about your sky and your space, Cocky. Nice, interesting few months coming up. October, November, December. A lot of NEOs.
Eyes on the skies, guys.
Isn't there, I heard mentioned there's going to be a
meteors.
Yeah.
Two, I think.
We've had one already on Friday, and then another one on Domain.
Visible to most of the planet. And it's been the first time since something like 1944.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting as well, but that time reference of like, oh, you mean near the end of the war? The war with the invisible enemy that didn't need to be fought. Yeah.
You should have a lot of nature's pilot displays as well over the next 3 or 4 months. Going through a lot of asteroid belts.
Make a wish.
I wondered as well whether they've deliberately been timing the launch of things like the Elon Musk satellite, you know, the micro satellites that he's sending up.
It's strange you should say that.
They're doing more of them now, and it made me wonder whether are they deliberately trying to sort of hide things in the mass of things like the meteor showers that happen around this time of year.
I was watching Montagraph this morning. He was on about this
meteor showers.
Elon Musk and 5G and the chemtrailing of barium and aluminium in the sky. And saying, if you think about all the satellites that are like he's put up are now like a web above, they're all interlinked, all connected as a big web above the planet. Yeah. Then you've got the barium and the aluminium in the middle, and then you've got the 5G towers below. He was saying, like, if you could put all three of them together, could they work as sort of like a booster to put out a magnetic field to deflect an asteroid?
I don't know.
I put a link.
If we point the phasers at the dilithium crystals, it might
Yeah.
just work.
Yeah.
It's far-fetched, isn't it?
Yeah. For anyone that doesn't get that, that's a classic one for the Trekkies out there. That's a Star Trek reference where in those kind of episodes where they've got a seemingly impossible problem going on with the ship, like the ship's falling apart or some shit, they always come up with the solution that involved doing something just somewhat meaningless, like shoot the phasers at the dilithium crystals.
It was
And
good.
I know-
It sort of drew me in up to that point until, you know.
I know from
Yeah,
I'm
I thought,
not
"Oh."
exactly a Trekkie, but I'm a
Yeah.
bit of a nerd, so I've
Yeah.
sort of seen this stuff over the years. But I know that the script writers had like a crib sheet, which was sort of like their tech speak, and it just listed a load of words that sounded either scientific or mechanical or, you know, something like that, sci-fi kind of words, and they would literally just swap and change them. And they'd say, like, oh, if you do this with the doohickey, then this will happen. And when it was required in the script, that was like the magic sci-fi pill. Remember what I said earlier about the magic pill and the technology, the power of technology? What would you do with it? That kind of question. That was them in the effort of, it's a lot of what Star Trek was meant to do when it was first designed and put out to the public back in the 60s, to create a religious dogma around science and the acceptance of what was called science and a public view of science as being magical, that it could achieve anything. How do you feed yourself? Oh, replicator, just press the button, get food. Magic. But it's technology, folks. It's science that one day we will be able to achieve. So it created a religious fervor to support scientific advancement and the reliance on technology to save ourselves, yeah, because we're incapable of surviving in the wilderness unless we've got a smartphone. Fucking idiocy. Sorry, I end up ranting.
Well, if you look at it, Cookie, they're almost there with replicator, aren't they? 3D
Yes.
printing states and everything.
They
You'll be able to do that for your meals at work soon.
Some commercial companies are in effect already working on it, or certainly already producing things. If you check out Jeff Censored when he's talking with Camille from Please Stop the Ride, you know, and they do shows every so often when they talk about things like the biotech and the food industries and GMO and stuff like that, you know, the technological side of the agendas that are being pushed out. But Camille's research showed recently that, you know, there's a lot more of these companies that are doing things like the fake meat or the plant-based burgers and stuff like that. In effect, that is what they are already doing. It's technically, I know it's a bit pedantic, they're not exactly using 3D printers to print steaks, but in the industrial process, really, that is what's happening. They're taking base resources that's not food and converting it into this stuff that they then call food.
Yeah,
so
we
they
mentioned
are
it,
in
didn't we?
effect
Yeah.
using an industrial process to print burgers and then sell them to the public. You go, oh, it's plant-based.
Care of our lovely friend who's got can't keep his arms from flailing all over the
I
place.
know, I've been doing it as well. Maybe it's something about that kind of ideology. Whenever you start talking about that kind of ideology, you're just forced to start wiggling your hands around. Yeah.
Did you mention Please Stop the Ride, the channel?
Yes.
Because that's where there's a lot of good info on that. So
Yes.
about all that stuff. It's shocking, but go and check it out because you need to know this stuff.
Yeah.
It's
a really good reference source because she makes the effort that a lot of people don't, to actually look at the websites and the documents of those companies and corporations that are pursuing this kind of technology.
Yeah.
So I know I like to sit here and just do my thing. Yeah, I'm more of a talker and a storyteller than I am here's a bunch of paperwork for you to look at. I don't like to approach the situation from that kind of direction, but the evidence is there. It's just that most of this information is never presented to the public. It's only ever
No.
talked about within the industry itself.
Yeah.
So a lot of the public is completely unaware of this shit. But the reality is the technology and the industrialization of this kind of stuff is going full steam ahead. Yeah. It's not going to be long before you're going to find it harder and harder to buy real meat, because stuff will be expected to be produced through some kind of industrial process.
Ugh, just the mere thought of it makes me want to throw up. It's like just wrong.
Right,
And,
so
and,
like-
and half the time, if the way that I look at it is, if you look at a label and you can't pronounce it, then put it down.
Or it
I
tastes
don't know,
like
it took me years to learn how to say quinoa.
Say what?
Quinoa.
Quinoa. What's
Yeah.
that?
Well, how's it spelt? It's something weird.
Q.
Quuian.
Quinoa. Oh, yeah, that one.
Quinoa.
Quinoa.
Yeah,
It's like
kind
a,
of all right.
it's like a lentil. It's like a
Yeah.
smaller version of a lentil. It's a pulse that you
Oh,
boil.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cookie, I've just dropped a couple of links into your Skype. They're just images, that's all. If you want to have a look at them.
So I've been trying to yak
No,
and
you can't.
roll a smoke at the same time, and I'm just getting distracted like I usually
No
do.
problem. Corn, ugh, James, that stuff, no.
Or finding anything without soy or anything
Yeah.
like that as well. It's like everything's got that in it. Everything's got something to, it's hard to avoid anything to a certain degree, or at least be aware and limit it, as much as you possibly can.
The more you can do for yourself, the
Yeah, grow your own food and stuff. That's
If
the
you
way up,
can. Or try and find the providence of your food supply if you can. So, if you haven't got the ability, or you haven't got the space or whatever to be growing your own, but you know somebody who does, maybe somebody who's got an allotment or whatever, and you get your own, trade going with them over something, you know the providence of your food.
No, right, that one's awful. That didn't come out as clear as what I thought. Hang on, I'll find you a better link to that.
I do.
That's coming out there. That's come out awful.
I do
I'll
survival
find you the
and-
proper link.
Survival and hunting days on a Sunday. Apply by email.
Hang on.
Do you send the skins by email as well?
Yeah.
You have caught a virtual fox.
Right, hang on.
Yeah, by clicking your mouse button repeatedly.
Right,
I don't do fox and badger.
What's this? Incident.
Yes. Right. So this is from my own 1972 medical book. And if anybody can read that down there.
Okay, yeah. Cold, common. A viral infection that causes inflammation of the mucous membranes lining the nose and throat, resulting in a stuffy, runny nose and sometimes also a sore throat, headache and other discomfort. Causes. Almost 200 viruses, all broadly similar in their effects, are known to cause colds. The most common belong to one of two groups, the rhinoviruses and the coronaviruses. Most colds are contracted by breathing in virus-containing droplets that have been sneezed or coughed into the atmosphere, or by rubbing the eyes or nose with fingers that have picked up a virus by hand-to-hand contact, or by handling contaminated objects such as hand towels. Incidence. Almost everyone occasionally gets a cold. The incidence is highest among school children, who may have as many as 10 colds a year, and declines with increasing age. On average, a young adult has 2 or 3 colds per year. An elderly person has 1 or none at all. The reason for this is that children at school are exposed to a host of different viruses to which they have not yet become immune and which they pass to one another.
Yeah.
They are
So
breeding grounds.
Yeah. That book is from 1972.
Yeah.
So, coronaviruses have been around for a long time. It's
Has
just
Hancock or Boris read that?
I don't think
read anything?
anybody's bothered to tell them.
Can they read, or do they just get it downloaded?
Yeah, and that other link that I gave you with the crap copy, I've just posted the link at the bottom of the StreamYard chat.
I think government
So
are
just
still
in
on
case.
signals.
Sorry, Dean.
So I think government are still on smoke signals.
Yeah.
Please don't forget the. Well, how come that's popped up? I didn't click on that, did I? I must have
That must have done, lad. That must
random
have done.
click. Sorry, Uni, that wasn't like I was plucking you out of the comments for no reason. I'm not sure what you were on about with the serial, but that was just like a random misclick while I was trying to open the chat up. Right, yeah, I got it now. Yeah, that's the change of high consequence thing, was it?
Yeah. So just in case people weren't aware, because that's been vastly dropped, not mentioned. So again, from their own documents.
This is the guidance for high consequence infectious diseases, HCID, guidance and information, blah, blah, blah. Status of COVID-19. As of 19th of March 2020, COVID-19 is no longer considered to be a high consequence infectious disease in the UK.
There you go.
And I know we talked about this at the time.
Yeah.
But
So
yes, it's been there, available on their own website for you to check out, but the public aren't told this. The public aren't encouraged in any way to question, like, well, what do you mean it's no longer a high consequence infectious disease?
Yeah.
How can you claim this pandemic if it's not a high consequence? Means people get seriously ill or die from it.
Yeah.
So they knew full well all the way back then that this thing was no more dangerous. In fact, it's turned out to be a lot less dangerous than seasonal flu from normal influenza. But they're still pushing the lie that we need localized lockdowns and everyone's got to wear a face mask and soon you'll all be required to get vaccines for something that has for the majority of the population, the vast majority of the population, it has a 99.99% survival rate. And the tests they're using, like we showed, have a 7% accuracy. What job do you know of where you can get away with only being 7% accurate and yet cause the detrimental destruction of people's livelihoods and even their lives for 7% accuracy? Yeah, mate, only government. The one thing I was going to mention before I started opening this link up and got distracted again was, please don't allow the government to hide behind the cloak of incompetence, because that is a very common tactic that they use. This is part of why they do periodic distraction tactics on the public. So every couple of weeks there'll be some new super gossip that does the rounds in the media, like so-and-so celebrity has got an extra penis or something. It's got 2 penises. All the gossip, all the salacious articles that go. They're distractions.
2 fucks.
They're distractions, so that you forget about the mistakes that happened a couple of weeks ago that the government has turned around and told you, oh, we're terribly sorry, mistakes were made, but we'll do better. 2 weeks later, the same thing again. 2 weeks later, the same thing again. They hide behind a cloak of incompetence. These people are supposed to be world-renowned experts that run the machinery of your country for you. If they were your employee in your household, would you still be employing them?
Yeah, I think we'd have all been fired a long time ago.
If you were, use that kind of metaphor, analogy, the kind of, maybe use the Victorian time period, a Victorian manor household, which means you probably got like 30 servants working on that household because it's a manor house. You're running the household. You're the occupant, the owner of the household. if you were going to drink your water supply from your well every day, and every day it tasted like piss, and you asked the water bearer, you know, whoever it was in charge of fetching the water, like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, I'm terribly sorry, sir, but every day I accidentally piss in the well. Would you still be employing that person? You know, I'm terribly sorry, sir. Every day I test the water, but I'm only about 7% accurate of it not containing piss. Would you still employ that person?
Well, I could see Boris as a butler, can't you? Like,
I'll fit the shoes on today, sir.
We've got some stories about Boris, but we'll save that for Wednesday. If you want to, if you want to join us on the reality chat Wednesday at 8 o'clock, then yeah, we'll do some revealing about our Boris.
Yeah.
Da, da, da.
I'm trying to find that picture again that I thought was
I don't think he's even qualified to be a butler, Peter.
Yeah, I think he would fail the butler test.
Yeah.
He wouldn't get the qualification because there is actually a qualification required to be a butler. You can't just say you're a butler. You know, you can't just go and get a job as a butler. There is the equivalent of a
Royal Butlers Association.
Yeah, it's not exactly a license. It's kind of like an accreditation, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
You've passed the test of being able to polish somebody's shoes or whatever.
Like etiquette thing.
in the right way.
Like an etiquette lesson.
That's what I was
had
thinking.
that right.
Think of a worse job.
Yeah, etiquette lessons.
Etiquette.
Or elocution lessons.
Yeah.
How to pronunciate in the Queen's English, which is no longer allowed because the Queen's English spreads too much COVID. Because whenever you talk, you spit all over everyone, just like Heseltine used to.
All over one's face.
Yeah. No singing, no dancing, no jokes. I'm surprised that actually I was thinking of making this prediction over the weekend.
Yep, no laughing.
It wouldn't surprise me if soon they started cancelling comedy shows because you're not allowed to laugh because you might spit on someone. No comedy allowed. No more. Does it remind you of another time in history when everything got really puritanical? And there was a guy called Cromwell who thought he wanted to be in charge, but then he wasn't sure if he really liked the job. And most of the public hated him because he was a Puritan and, you know, he's really boring and harsh and strict. And then they asked for the king back and all that kind of shit. Yeah. So last time this kind of shit was done, and what happened then? Oh, it was a civil war, wasn't it? Oh, fucking hell. Sounds a bit like now.
We don't want that now, though, because we've got a slightly better army.
Yeah. I think the Roundheads would probably be a bit too tech savvy to get sucked into that shit now.
I mean, what would that then? Probably every 40, maybe 50 seconds they could fire a shot after loading a musket and that.
Yeah, at least, man, maybe you're talking like 30 seconds because they were early style muskets, black powder shit.
It's frigging 30 seconds, that's 500 rounds, mate, in one of our guns.
And I know I haven't talked about this kind of thing for quite a while. I might have mentioned it at some point recently, but classically, over time, I felt for myself anyway, my own learning and exploring history and that kind of thing, it becomes obvious that every revolution has been at least curated, if not outright created from scratch and enabled and forced upon the general population. Because every revolution, look around the world, every revolution that's happened, what's happened to those countries after the fact, and where have they ended up now? There's not really many of them that can be truly said to have, you know, gained massive freedom and become a shining light of liberty and freedom and all that kind of good stuff. No. French Revolution, do you think the French people feel very free at the moment? Would the yellow vests consider themselves free at the moment?
Definitely not.
No. People in Cuba? No. People in China? No. People in Russia? No. And even though it's not often talked about from the point of view of being a civil war revolution, the civil war in the UK had pretty much the same effect. That's why, I'm making a bit of a joke out of it, but that's why I said, everyone got fed up with Cromwell because he was too strict and too puritanical. And they wanted to be able to sing and dance and laugh and have fun. So they got rid of Cromwell and brought the king back in. Yeah. So they went back to the same old shit. So now when they're pushing this concept of they want us to be out on the street and getting violent and having a violent armed revolution, I think there's more than enough evidence from history to show that that never, ever works the way you think it will. It won't get fooled again. It's the same. Meeting a new boss, same as the old boss. The revolution just means going in a circle.
Yeah, going around.
They get you to destroy your own home, and then they tell you, we'll help you build it again. And now look, it's all now shiny and new. But you're still in the same place.
If you look at it as well, Cookie, anything with a significant movement, it's always ended up something like a Black Wednesday or, you know what I mean? The British Army marched in and shot them all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think I'd see it different in a sense of a rise of a consciousness and a rise of behaviour, that you won't want to do that. People don't want that. Don't want to go down that route because, like you said, Cookie, they've seen it many times and it's not the way to do it anymore. We need to grow up and evolve, you know, evolve, not revolve around and go the other. We need to do that bit, and that's what we're working on. I think that's what everyone's doing at the moment.
I think I did say to my neighbour whose daughter was acting extremely paranoid. I said, what will it take? Is she waiting for a letter from Daddy Boris to say that she can go out to play again? And she looked at me. She went, I said, well, she needs to grow up. Take responsibility for her own life and stop, listening. It's stand by for further instructions. Like, you can't think for yourself.
That's the problem. That capability has been taken away from the population.
Yeah.
That's why, as well, it's intrinsically tied into the smart tech, because it's your brain in the palm of your hand. Externalize your authority. You don't need to think about how many times you need to have a shit per day. The device will tell you when to go for a shit, and it will tell you if you've got permission to go out of your home or not. They've done this very deliberately, very methodically over a few generations, at least 2 generations, in moving towards this position. And I'm not saying, I'm not a Luddite. Yeah, I'm not saying that people should shun all technology because it's of the devil or some ridiculous shit like that. If you actually look at what the Luddites said, it wasn't ridiculous extremism like that. Yeah, of course, there's always some people that have those kind of over-the-top attitudes, but the Luddites were trying to explain their point of view that every time you introduce these new technologies that take over people's lives, you basically exclude the people. And in the end, we will end up in a situation where you won't need people anymore. You'll just need the machine. Yeah. And lo and behold, here we are now, 200 years later, maybe a bit more, but that's literally the stage we've got to. Where now, even though they may not necessarily say it directly, those in power know that the majority of us are extraneous to requirements, is the nice way to put it. Yeah, so for them, the technology is most definitely being used as a weapon against the rest of us. For us, we still have the choice and the opportunity to use the technology for our own benefit. Yeah, it doesn't have to be destructive. It can be used in positive ways, but you have to be more aware and responsible for how you use it. If you have a smart device, a up-to-date phone, and you just click yes to all the terms and conditions and the apps and everything it wants to do, and you download the track and trace, then it's your own dumb fault when you end up in a technological prison. Yeah. If you don't consider those possibilities when you're playing with that brain in your hand, then you will lose that brain. You will lose your authority. You will lose the freedom that you think you have. I know so many people get pissed off with, it just sounds too simple. We need a complex plan like Trump, trust the plan. Only Trump can save us. You not using your smartphone, that's never going to save us, mate. No, we need somebody like Trump to march in and save the day. No, you fucking don't. You need people who are able to think for themselves, stand in their own authority, know themselves, be in contact with their own inner self, their heart, their connection to everything else around them, and have the humility to know that they are part of that entire picture. So everything you do, even if you think it's insignificant, it's not, because every action you take, every word you say is all part of that tapestry that ends up being what we call society, reality that we share with each other. The more people that start thinking in that kind of fashion and saying, hang on a minute, do I really need that app that tells me how many times to go for a shit a day? Am I not capable of making a decision? No, fuck that app off, block that, no to your terms and conditions, don't want you. Do I really need to click accept on this tracking app that's attached to this program that I want to use? I want to use the program, but I don't want it tracking everything I do. No, fuck off. I'll learn to do it another way.
Yeah.
Do I need to have a sat nav telling me where to go and tracking all my movements because it knows where I'm going because I'm asking it how to get? Do I need that, or do I just need to get a map and learn how to read a map and learn how to independently follow my own directions? And if I happen to get lost, take a moment and go, hang on, well, where do I actually know when I was in the right place that I know? Okay, I'll go back down that road. Oh, yeah, there's that junction I should have took. I'll go that way. Don't need no fucking sat-nav. All these little things are incremental grains of sand on a balance lever that is dragging your independence, your authority, your freedom away from you. And every time you pick up one of their little grains of sand, that is getting heavier and heavier and heavier, and you're losing more and more and more. Sorry, rant over. The media itself is not necessarily your enemy, but it is certainly, the majority of it, it's there to exploit you in some fashion. So if you develop that authority within yourself to say, not interested, mate, no thank you, don't want it, click the off button, not going to look at your shit, then it has no power over you. And the same thing with the technology.
Yeah.
You can use these devices to help yourself, to learn from, to enable things within your life that you wouldn't have had access to without that bit of tech. But at the same time, you don't cease to exist when you put all the tech in the cupboard. The tech, I know that, as a pedantic point or caveat, I know some people in the world need this kind of thing, but the tech doesn't actually keep you alive. It doesn't sustain your existence. If you turn it all off and put it away in the cupboard, you don't cease to exist. You're still there. You're still breathing. You're still living. You're still real. So you don't need it in your life. It's just a beneficial tool, potentially.
Your day actually lasts longer as well.
Yeah. So I know I'm ranting a lot about this, but I think it is vitally important at the moment because there is so much about what they're trying to do that is based on the foundation that they want to entrap us in a technological prison. The easiest way to prevent that is stop using the technology.
Leave your phone at home.
Yeah.
And use a landline a bit more. Are they still using landlines? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you can still get. I've still got one.
Yeah.
I know it sounds simplistic and cliched, and of course it's not applicable to every situation. All those kind of caveats of please don't get stuck into black and white simplistic thinking. This stuff has got nuance to it, and it's relative to your individual situation and stuff like that. But if you're a bit more aware about it and you think about those potentials and the responsibility that you have as part of that tapestry, maybe you can make a decision and think, well, I'm not, I don't need the phone with me at the moment. I'll leave it at home for now when you're going out somewhere and doing something. Do you really need it to be constantly checking when you go to the pub to meet your mates and have a drink? You're at the pub with your mates, so why do you need to be constantly checking your phone? Who did you go to see at the pub? Did you go to see your mates, or did you go to look at your phone? I know it could get off into a divergence about selfishness and narcissism and egotism and all that kind of stuff. It is a mirror that draws you in, captures your attention, and externalizes yourself into something that you have no real control over, other than the ability to turn it off and put it down.
One of my secret pet hates that as well, Cookie. Somebody sat there on the phone. It's really, really annoying.
Yeah. They say they want to see you or talk to you, and then they sit there with the phone between you and them. Yeah. What did you want to say? Hang on, I'm just going to reply to this text.
I had a friend that did that to me. Oh, just wound me up no end. She went on that she wanted to go out, so we finally went out, and she spent all night messing about on her phone to her kids. And I said, I thought that you'd come out to get away from your kids, and now you're texting them your video chatting with them. I said, like, this is supposed to be your night of, like, hang on, I'm just going to be me. I'm not going to be mum for 5 minutes. Just like she couldn't shut off. And I said to her, next time you ask me to go out, I said, unless your phone is either in the car or buried or switched off, or if you go to pick it up, I'll just put it in the nearest pint that I can find.
Hi, Jamlers. I've just seen you in the chat. Hope you're well. Thanks for the videos recently. Talking about winning. We're winning. And so I'll say hello quick to a few.
Me too, hive mind concussion as well. It literally upsets my stomach when I see these kids glued to their tech. Yeah, it does me as well. Especially where they're holding it so close to their bodies, and they don't realize that it all has a knock-on effect of, they're sitting with the iPads on their laps, near to where all their reproductive organs are. I could just cry.
You're surrounded by that technology anyway. You've got
it's just evil.
You're going to have no choice but to have the smart meter in next year. They're giving pulses off every 5 minutes.
Yeah, not where I am. I keep having them sending me letters, and I've even rang them up and said, like, thanks but no thanks, and they said, oh yeah, but but we've made a promise to the government that we're going to have these in by so and so, and I said, oh okay. I said, well, just listen to what you've just said. You've promised the government. I said, it's got nothing to do with me. I said, you've promised it. I don't have to do anything.
You're all right.
Take me off your list.
You could have really reversed that on him.
I could have done, but
I promised the husband or the wife or whatever, I promised that I'd do some pancakes tonight. You're going to come round, mate, and help me cook the pancakes, yeah? I really need you to, because I promised that I'd do it for her.
This is crazy. So no, you don't have to have them. Again, it's not law. They've made the promises to the government, so the onus is on them. It's got nothing to do with us.
Exactly. I've asked them for a lot of a liability contract, but they won't do one.
No, of course not. They won't take.
There's something wrong with them. If you won't do a liability contract, if I get ill within a few months of you putting them in.
Well, my friend's son, he sleeps in the room above where the meter is, and since that's been in, that kid's been nothing but ill. And I kept on saying to her, well, she's going to be moving anyway. I said, but you need to get rid of that. But she's moving anyway, so. And I said to her, when you move, do not have one of those.
Hello and
thanks. You've no choice, Taz. They won't put any other meter in.
No,
well, if there's one already there.
Smart meters in there.
Well, I would kick off, but
joining in the chat. I thought that was like, yeah, you're right. I used to be just reading papers. Even I'm not ancient, but even I can remember when pubs did not have TVs in them. You'd be lucky if the pub had a radio in. You know,
Yeah.
most of them wouldn't have a radio because they'd have a jukebox in the corner or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, there weren't TVs. There was none of that media shit. It was just the pub. And you could take a newspaper or a book in with you, but it was you go to the pub to meet other people and sit and have a drink or whatever, not watch a TV program or sit there on your smartphone.
Yeah, there are some people that there's newspapers in our pub that they put on the bar.
I thought that was
People
for
do
toilet
read.
paper.
Yeah, I think it's they have it there as a backup.
Dig out some of your old tech as well if you've got it. As far as I know, anyway, if you've got the right SIM card in them, even older phones like, Jason said, old Nokia, they
I've
should
got a
still
3310.
work. Yeah, and as I've mentioned many times over however long now, you can get what are called dumb phones.
Yeah.
So if you are interested in sort of restricting how much they can find out about you, certainly curtailing a lot of what the corporations do in terms of the tracking apps on your phone, get a dumb phone. It blocks most of that stuff.
£10 on eBay. Get a dumb phone.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just take that out.
I had James. See you in the chat.
And if you do get caught out, where they say the QR code, you just say, no, I don't have a mobile phone.
No, that's what I tell them.
Nobody's obligated to have one.
I've got an old phone that's so old that it doesn't work with most of the apps and whatever. They just don't run. But it's purely for emergency reasons for my family. Not just for my own health, but the stuff in my family over recent years that meant I needed to have a phone so they could get in touch with me quick and things like that. But other than that, whenever I go anywhere and they ask for a mobile phone number, I just say, I ain't got one.
Yeah, so.
It doesn't matter who they are, even the government people say, I ain't got a mobile phone. So when they tell me like, oh, you've got to sign up for this using the app and whatever, I say, I can't do that, so you'll have to give me the old paper version, thank you.
Yeah.
I was just looking at that, what I put about there were no kids in his neighbourhood. They were all playing on tech, even before COVID. It's like a reverse from when I was growing up. Couldn't get us in. We were always out.
Always out. Out all day.
Now the parents are fighting to get them out.
Yeah. And even
the only way to get anybody's attention in this house is just switch the net off. They soon come running out screaming, oh my God, I've got no internet.
Guys, I'm going to have to scoot off in a bit, so I don't know how long. If you want to keep chatting, that's cool.
No, I'm going to wind it up now. I was
Oh,
trying to do that
yeah,
before
sorry.
I distracted myself and started ranting about drinking in a pub and whatever. It's the way it goes, folks. Like I said, I wanted to start or approach this season with doing just a roundtable conversation. Yes, I might say a little bit at the beginning because some of it is like housekeeping of things that have been going on during the week and whatever. But hopefully you're still appreciating what we're doing here. It's not just me. I know this is my channel and I host these shows, but it's not just me. There is a few of us here that have been communicating for years. You've got a good knowledge base at different points of view. We don't all agree on everything. Don't believe the bullshit that some people claim. We don't all agree on everything. So you get a good balance, I think, of points of view and ideas and information. So thanks for joining in. Thanks for giving us your attention for a couple of hours. We'll be back for the reality chat on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. on Peter's channel, the reality chat channel. And, we'll bite off a bit more from the news media and talk about some of the news articles and things like that. And I think Steve was in the chat earlier. Hello, Steve. If you were there. And he'll be on Thursday night on his channel, the Steve to Goose channel, doing the mystery show, where we're talking about some similar subjects and ideas, but he'll also play some great music. He's a good musician.
He
and
is.
It's a much more uplifting atmosphere. If you need that kind of
You have a laugh.
remembrance. If you need to remember that it's not all shit and bullshit, you know, yeah, tune in for Steve's show.
Some head bopping and toe tapping was going on the other day. Yeah,
and thinking.
We all
as
were
well.
having a good freak out.
Yeah, because it's a bit of music, a bit of conversation,
Yeah.
something to think about, something to consider, as well as some good music.
Yeah.
Yep.
And check out Raconteurs News. I know Jason is still putting shows on regularly.
Yeah.
And, you know, check out the Conscious Resistance. I mentioned that earlier. They're often doing live broadcasts as well now. And there's loads I could reel off, so I'm just going to shut up there. You all know the drill. Thanks again. Yeah.
Cheers, Cookie.
Hi.
Cheers, Cookie.
Thanks, Cookie. Cheers, everyone.
Folks.
Cheers, all.
Cheers.
Cheers. See you soon.